Penguin Random House Audio presents The Perfect Nanny by Leila Slimani. Translated from the French by Sam Taylor. Read for you by Finty Williams.
The baby is dead. It took only a few seconds. The doctor said he didn't suffer. The broken body, surrounded by toys, was put inside a grey bag which they zipped shut. The little girl was still alive when the ambulance arrived. She'd fought like a wild animal. They found signs of a struggle, bits of skin under her soft fingernails. On the way to the hospital, she was agitated, her body shaken by convulsions. Eyes bulging, she seemed to be gasping for air. Her throat was filled with blood. Her lungs had been punctured, her head smashed violently against the blue chest of drawers. They photographed the crime scene. They dusted for fingerprints and measured the surface area of the bathroom and the children's bedroom. On the floor, the princess rug was soaked with blood. The changing table had been knocked sideways. The toys were put in transparent bags and sealed as evidence. Even the blue chest of drawers would be used in the trial. The mother was in a state of shock. That was what the paramedics said, what the police repeated, what the journalists wrote. When she went into the room where the children lay, she let out a scream from deep within, the howl of a she-wolf. It made the walls tremble. Night fell on this May day. She vomited, and that was how the police found her, squatting in the bedroom, her clothes soiled, shuddering like a mad woman. She screamed her lungs out. The ambulance men nodded discreetly and they picked her up, even though she resisted and kicked out at them. They lifted her slowly to her feet and the young female trainee paramedic administered a tranquilizer. It was her first month on the job. They had to save the other one, too, of course, with the same level of professionalism, without emotion. She didn't know how to die. She only knew how to give death. She had slashed both her wrists and stabbed the knife in her throat. She must have lost consciousness lying next to the cot. They took her pulse and blood pressure. They moved her onto the stretcher and the young trainee applied pressure to the wound in her neck. The neighbours have gathered outside the building. Women, mostly. It will soon be time to fetch their children from school. They stare at the ambulance, puffy-eyed. They cry and they want to know. They stand on tiptoe, trying to make out what is happening behind the police cordon, inside the ambulance as it sets off, sirens screaming. They whisper to one another. Already the rumour is spreading. Something terrible has happened to the children. It is a handsome apartment building on Rue d'Hauteville in Paris's 10th arrondissement, a building where neighbours offer friendly greetings even if they don't know each other. The Massey's apartment is on the 5th floor. It's the smallest apartment in the building. Paul and Miriam built a dividing wall in the living room when their second child was born. They sleep in one half of that room, a cramped space between the kitchen and the window that overlooks the street. Miriam likes Berber rugs and furniture that she finds in antique stores. She has hung Japanese prints on the walls. Today, she came home early. She cut short a meeting and put off the examination of a dossier until tomorrow. Sitting on a folding seat on a Line 7 train, she thought about how she would surprise her children. During the short walk from the metro station, she stopped at a baker's. She bought a baguette, a dessert for her little ones, and an orange cake for the nanny. Her favourite. She thought about taking the children to the fairground rides. After that, they would buy the food for dinner together. Milo would ask for a toy. Adam would suck on a crust of bread in his pushchair. Adam is dead. Milo will be too, soon. No illegal immigrants. Agreed. For a cleaning lady or a decorator, it doesn't bother me. Those people have to work, after all. But to look after the little ones, it's too dangerous. I don't want someone who'd be afraid to call the police or to go to the hospital if there was a problem. Apart from that, not too old, no veils, and no smokers. The important thing is that she's energetic and available. That she works so we can work. Paul has prepared everything. He's drawn up a list of questions and scheduled 30 minutes for each interview. They have set aside their Saturday afternoon to find a nanny for their children. A few days before this, Miriam was discussing her search with her friend Emma, who complained about the woman that looked after her boys. The nanny has 2 sons here, so she can never stay late or babysit for us. It's really not practical. Think about that when you do your interviews. If she has children, it'd be better if they're back in her homeland. Miriam thanked her for the advice, but in reality, what Emma said had upset her. If an employer had spoken about her or one of her friends in that way, she would have cried discrimination. To her, the idea of ruling a woman out of a job because she has children is terrible. She prefers not to bring up the subject with Paul. Her husband is like Emma, pragmatic, someone who places his family and his career above all else. That morning, they went to the market together, all 4 of them, Mila on Paul's shoulders, Adam asleep in his pushchair. They bought flowers, and now they are tidying up the apartment. They want to make a good impression on the nannies who will come here. They pick up the books and magazines that litter the floor around and under their bed, and even in the bathroom. Paul asks Mila to put her toys away in large plastic trays. The little girl refuses, whining, and in the end he piles them up against the wall. They fold the children's clothes, change the sheets on the beds. They clean, throw stuff away, try desperately to air this stifling apartment. They want the nannies to see that they are good people, serious, orderly people who try to give their children the best of everything. The nannies must understand that Miriam and Paul are the ones in charge here. Mila and Adam take a nap. Miriam and Paul sit on the edge of their bed, anxious, uncomfortable. They have never entrusted their children to anyone before. Miriam was in her last year at law school when she became pregnant with Mila. She graduated 2 weeks before the birth. Paul was getting more and more work placements, full of that optimism that had drawn Miriam to him when they first met. He was sure he'd earn enough money for both of them, certain that, despite the financial crisis, despite budget restrictions, he would forge a career in the music industry. Mila was a fragile, irritable baby who cried constantly. She didn't put on weight, refusing her mother's breast and the bottles that her father prepared. Leaning over the crib, Miriam forgot that the outside world even existed. Her ambitions were limited to persuading this puny, bawling infant to swallow a few ounces of milk. Months passed without her even realizing. Paul and she were never separated from Mila. They pretended not to notice as their friends got annoyed, whispering behind their backs that a baby has no place in a bar or a restaurant. But Miriam absolutely refused to consider using a babysitter. She alone was capable of meeting her daughter's needs. Mila was barely 18 months old when Miriam became pregnant again. She always claimed it was an accident. The pill is never 100%, she told her friends, laughing. In reality, that pregnancy was premeditated. Adam was an excuse not to leave the sweetness of home. Paul did not express any reservations. He'd just been hired as an assistant in a famous studio, where he spent his days and nights, a hostage to the whims of the artists and their schedules. His wife seemed to be blooming, a natural mother. This cocooned existence, far from the world and other people, protected them from everything. And then time started to drag. The clock-like perfection of the family mechanism became jammed. Paul's parents, who had got into a routine of helping them after Mila's birth, began to spend more and more time at their house.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?